Welcome to the Real View podcast, where Ohio Realtors connect you to innovators and influencers, keeping you with the real view of real estate. Whether you're a broker, agent, first-time homebuyer, industry leader, or just happen to stumble upon our podcast today, you can expect to hear tips, tools, tricks, interesting information, and so much more from the experts in Ohio's real estate game. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Real View podcast. I'm your host, Allison. Joining me today is our very special guest, Jackie Leavenworth. She is an international speaker, also known as Coach Jackie. She is a friend to Ohio Realtors. She is an Ohio native, had her family here in Northeast Ohio. She is definitely a friend to us and our association. Her unique strategies and enthusiasm for helping others make positive change has made Coach Jackie a sought-after presenter nationally and internationally. Jackie, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you.
Thanks, Allison. I'm so happy to be here, and especially in Ohio.
Yay!
With my own tribe.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you on the podcast today. And then, as I mentioned, having you at the convention in September. So excited to finally be having guests come back. It's been a long 2 years, and it's just going to be a great time. Okay, so I want to hear, Jackie, I have to ask our Real View question that we ask all of the guests who join me on the podcast, which is the show is called The Real View. So what is the best view that you've ever seen?
Wow, that is such a tough question for me, Allison, because my mind immediately wants to go to visual views. And because I've been so blessed in my life to travel throughout Europe and see the Swiss Alps and castles and things like that, and I mean, I've taught in all 50 states and all across Canada. So the Oregon coast, the Hawaii, Alaska, and the colors and everything else. But seeing all of that, sunsets, they all just fascinate me. And I feel so blessed every time I see this beautiful vista of color somewhere. But I have to say that I had a very scary surgery when my children were young. My son was only a couple of years old. My daughter was 5, and I had a very, very scary surgery going on. And when I woke up in whatever that intensive care holding room is after surgery, my best friend, who is a nurse, was at my bedside, and I opened my eyes and I saw my best friend's face. And I think, as I think back, that probably was the best view I've ever had my entire life. The fact that I woke up was really great, but the fact that my best friend was looking at me, telling me I was going to be okay.
That's amazing. I don't think you could get any better than that. I mean, I've asked this question, almost to 100 people on almost 100 episodes now, and that's amazing. How does it get better than that? You're right. Just knowing you're going to be okay and you're safe and all is well. Great answer.
Yeah.
What a way to start the show.
Her shining eyes were like,
oh, I love that. Well, I'm so happy everything went well and you're here and all is good health-wise. So thank you so much for sharing that. I really loved hearing that. But before we get started on today's show, and we're going to talk about business planning, which is going to be really cool. And I'm super excited to have you talking about this today because your perspective on this and what you're going to share with us, I think is going to really open our members' eyes and our listeners' eyes to something different, and which I always want to bring to the show is just a different way of thinking about things. But before we get started in that, I kind of want to talk a little bit about you and maybe how did you get started in real estate? Is this always kind of something that you wanted to do, or tell us your background story?
Oh, wow. Well, so I love real estate. I mean, I just always loved real estate. And way back in the early 80s, my husband said something to me. He said, you spend every weekend going to open houses and just looking at houses. He said, why don't you just sell it and make money?
There you go.
And so that was sort of the seed that started it. But then a broker contacted me from Wadsworth, Ohio. And he said, Jackie, there are 3 people in town who I believe could stand on a street corner, say the words real estate, and people would buy from them. And you're one of them. And I would like for you to come work for me and get your license. And, it was really, I thought, oh gosh, do I really want to do that? It's kind of scary, And I ended up meeting the two other people who could stand on the street corner. And we decided to go to Akron University together.
Shout out to Akron. I have to shout. So I'm from Barberton, if you know where that.
Are,
yes.
Of course.
So shout out to 330. Shout out to Akron. I love that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wadsworth, Ohio is where I raised my children.
Oh my gosh, we're neighbors.
Yeah, exactly. And so we went and got our license, and that ball just started rolling. And it was quite a twist, because after the first year in real estate, I had something like 180 hours of education, continuing education, because I'm just this amazing sponge that I can't stop learning. And by the end of the first year, the experienced agents were coming into me and going, "Where did you get that? Who taught you that?" And I'd say, "Well, I made that up." "Well, will you teach us how to do it?" And with that, I mean, literally within 3 years, I started teaching for free and selling real estate. And then Ohio Association of Realtors, honestly, was my huge springboard.
Aww.
A broker by the name of Darlene Kovac said to me one day, she said, "You have to start giving back to your industry. It's been very good to you. You have to give back." And she said, "You need to get involved with the local association," which at that time was the Medina County Board, and then the Ohio Association. And so I started coming to the meetings, and Tim Lockwood, who was the education director at the time, hired me to do some continuing education classes. And then I became an ABR instructor and a GRI instructor. And it all started. And then I went national. And so I was selling real estate, teaching real estate, and it was just all a snowball.
Mm-hmm. Happens so fast sometimes, right?
Gosh.
Yeah.
And that was 38 years ago.
Wow.
It'll be 38 years in November.
Amazing.
And I've never looked back. I just love the industry. I love what it offers, and the fact that every day is different and every client is certainly different.
Yes, yes. And you have built up such an extensive knowledge over these 38 years practicing as an agent and sharing your story and advice and coaching new agents too. So congrats on an amazing almost 40-year career. That's incredible. Yeah. Congratulations. So, well, thanks for sharing. I like hearing, background stories as well. I think it helps give context to what we're going to talk about for the rest of the episode. So let's kind of get into the show. As I mentioned, we're going to be talking about business planning, and I know you are going to be speaking on this at our September convention, a little bit longer of a session than what we're going to be able to share here. But I think it's cool to give anyone listening and individuals who aren't able to attend convention, I think, it's important that we share a little bit of your session on today's show as well. So let's kind of get started with business planning. Could you break that down, I think, for us? Like, just maybe start with the basics of what it is and what it means to an agent or a realtor.
Okay, great question. If you think about, we're in the business of houses, right? So a house has, in the north, most houses have basements. If they don't have a basement, they've got a poured concrete footer, and there's a foundation for the house. And the house is only as good as its foundation. Mm-hmm. A business plan, in my opinion, is the foundation of the business. And if you don't have a plan, then you get wrapped up in this business. And that is what happens. And I will make a very bold statement here that in my experience, and that's 38 years, and I've taught in every state. I've taught across country or Canada. I've taught for people in 4 different countries. And I will say that over 90% of real estate agents do not have a written business plan and foundation. They don't. So what happens is we get caught up in the business and we don't take time to work on the business as a business. And look, the reason I really got in the real estate business, I mean, I told you my story, but I didn't tell you why I really did it. Mm-hmm. I wanted to escape diapers and dishes. Seriously.
Yeah.
I thought at one point in my life, I would like to interact with adults.
Yep. Yep.
And how fun would that be? Well, I was a great example of somebody who didn't have a business plan. Literally, Allison, my broker asked me the very first year how much money I wanted to make. And you know what? I didn't know because I got in it because he said I could sell real estate. But I thought $1 million salesperson at that time made $1 million. I didn't know they sold $1 million worth of house value. I didn't know. And so he said, you know, what do you want to make? And I said, God, I don't know. And so he helped me. I was brand new. He said, if I ever met someone who could sell a house a month. Now, remember, this is 1984. So it wasn't like it is now.
Yeah.
He said, if I've ever met anybody who could sell a house a month, it would be you. He said, so how about we go for a house a month? And I said, okay, and how much money would I make at a house a month? And he said, well, probably about $10,000. Now, people listening to this podcast are going to go, what?
Yeah.
You seriously? I mean, I make $30,000 on one deal.
Right.
And you had to sell 12 houses to make 10. Yeah. Fact is, yes, my average income was about $800. My average sale was $34,000. 80% of my business was FHA, VA, or seller financing. I mean, it was different, right? So I said, okay, $10,000. Well, I got caught up in the business. I loved it. It loved me. I loved it. And so I came into his office the next year because he wanted to business plan. And this was the business plan. This is how much money do you want to make this year? That was a business plan.
Wow. And
I said, I've been thinking about this. I knew you were going to ask me. And I want to make $10,000. And he said, you made $25,000 your first year in real estate, unheard of. Why would you want to make $10,000? I said, I don't want to disappoint myself. I mean, this is like real talk going back and forth, right? I said, I don't want to disappoint myself. He said, whatever, I'm putting you down for $36,000. I said, well, you can put me down for whatever you want, but I'm walking out with $10,000 in my head. I don't want to disappoint myself. Okay, fine. So I made almost $40,000.
Oh my gosh.
Year. The third year he called me in. What do you want to make this year? What do you think? I told him $10,000.
Yep, 10. Yeah.
Right? And I made almost 50.
Wow.
So the point of all that was that I got caught up in the business, loved the business. I made a lot of money, but I was making money in spite of myself. Right? But I didn't have a plan. And what I didn't figure out, and what my broker hadn't figured out, was what was making me tick. He didn't understand that money wasn't my goal. My goal was to have something where I could share and I could learn and I could grow. And it wasn't about the money. So it wasn't until I was in the business about 5 years that somebody got a hold of me and said, whoa, wait a minute. You are playing whack-a-mole. He said, you're like being at the fair, like, you're just putting out fires and selling houses to buyers and listing homes. And that's what people do. They get tied up in the business. And if you stay any length of time, you have to love it because it's a hard business.
This episode of The Real View is brought to you by the Ohio Association of Community Colleges. Ohio's network of community colleges provides accessible training that accommodates the busy lifestyles of aspiring real estate professionals at half the price of a traditional university. With convenient locations in every part of the state, as well as online options, Ohio's community colleges are your smart choice for pre-licensing education. For more details or to start the journey to a real estate career, visit the education page at ohiorealtors.org and then click on the pre-license course locations. Yeah.
It's not easy.
And you got to work a lot. I mean, people think you just, start up and I'll do it, on the weekends or evenings. And no, it's a big commitment.
Yeah, it is. And it's an emotional roller coaster. We're dealing with people's highest emotional levels and largest financial assets. It's emotional. So you have to love it. And we get caught up in just doing the daily grind of things. And we never stop and think about building that foundation. Why am I in the business in the first place? What do I want this money for? People are making money. They don't even know what it's for.
Yep.
And it wasn't until I figured all of that out. In fact, my broker got really smart after a while. He introduced me to big boating on Lake Erie. and talked me into buying a boat because he told me I was working 24/7 and I was going to lose my marriage and kill myself. And he said, buy a boat. So we did. We bought a boat on Lake Erie. We named it Connect 4. We had 2 kids.
I love that.
And so Connect 4 cost a lot of money. Gas cost a lot of money. Dockage costs a lot of money. Winterizing costs a lot of money. All of a sudden, I had to make money.
There you go. Yeah.
And it gave me a bit of a purpose for that.
Yeah.
So that was just sort of the start for me. But I think this business planning, it is a foundation, and not enough people do it. They just get caught up in the daily stuff.
Yeah. And you kind of have, I mentioned in the intro, a very unique perspective on business planning, and your approach to it is very unique in this real estate market. Tell us a little bit about your approach and why it is so different than maybe some of the typical other approaches that are out there.
Well, what I found out after too many years of doing it the other way, what I found out was that typical business planning that even many of our brokers will call the agents in and do is, I think, backwards. So the business planning that I will be teaching in September and that I really, really believe in is what I call reverse business planning. And what I mean by that is most agents come into the business and they are taught that marketing is the first thing they do. You take money and you throw it into marketing. You get your face and your name out there in as many places as you can. And, you market online and you market and you get out to open houses and you get be seen, be found, be trusted. I mean, those are my 3 top things, by the way. Be seen, be found, be trusted.
I love that.
And however you can do that. Well, but what we do is throw money at that. And then all of a sudden, we're not necessarily making profitable money. We're not getting profits. We're not saving money for the second home. We're not saving money for the kids' marriages. We're not saving money for the kids' college. We're not saving money for a retirement so we don't have to move back in with our kids. We're not saving so that we don't have to second mortgage our home when our kids get married or whatever. And so that profitability goes out the door because we don't really have a clue. We're spending money on marketing. So in my plan, marketing actually becomes the very last step in the plan instead of the first step.
Total mindset shift.
It's huge.
Yeah. Because you almost think as an agent, like, okay, I got to take a picture, get it up on Instagram, post it here, post it here, post it here. Like that is kind of like, I think we're trained to do that these days.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. It's sort of a shotgun approach to doing business.
Yeah.
So what we do is we load our barrel with dollar bills and we shoot it out there in as many directions as we can so that people will recognize us and maybe call us.
Yeah.
It's A, very passive. It's B, very expensive. And it's C, it's not overly effective.
Yeah.
Now, in today's market, the frenzy of today's market, these crazy buyers that go on. Oh my gosh. It's a nuts market. And honestly, there are a lot of agents who have gotten in. They haven't had a business plan. They're busy enough if they know people who want to buy a house and they can find something for sale.
Right.
that they're making money in spite of themselves. But let me tell you, real estate is historically cyclical. I've been in almost 40 years, right? And it will always do the bell curvy thing.
Yeah.
It will always go up and down. What is happening today cannot last forever. And people need to think right now and plan right now for how do I not just survive, but thrive in the market when the market shifts.
Yep. It's not going to be like this forever.
No.
And what's the plan, for once it's not like this, Yeah.
Right. And throwing money at the wall is not the plan. And let me give you an example, Allison, because, I've coached agents all over the world. And top agents, really top agents, who come to me and they don't have a clue about what they're doing. One lady came to me, and it was so interesting to me. I was going over all of her numbers, and where she's spending her money and where she's doing her marketing, because again, in a typical business plan, it's number one. And so she was spending over $1,000 a month to get internet leads from an entire zip code. And I said, okay, and how are those leads? And she said, well, I've been doing this for 3 years and I've only sold one house from them. And I said, So that tells me either the leads aren't quality leads or you're not systemized in your follow-up with the people who you get the leads for. Mm-hmm. And she said, well, I don't think they're quality leads. And I said, why are you paying? So you've been doing this for 3 years. That's $36,000.
Wow, yeah.
You've spent $36,000. And what did you make on that one sale? And she said, I think I made about $4,000. I said, okay, let's do the math. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I said, why do you keep that? And here's what she said to me. Well, it's an entire zip code. I mean, I have the entire zip code to myself. I said, but it's cost you $32,000 that you didn't get any return on over 3 years. She said, yeah, but I don't want anyone else to have that zip code. I said, here's what I would do. I would pay somebody $1,000 to take it.
Seriously, yeah.
I said, you're going to save like $11,000 a year.
Yeah.
If you just pay somebody to take it. And I said, now, if you want to work on your follow-up systems, we can do that. But if you think it's literally terrible leads, and if you think you're getting everyone from that zip code, you're wrong, because that's just one entity that is selling a zip code. Mm-hmm. There's all these other entities selling the zip code. So you are not the only one getting the leads from the zip code. But here's a person who has literally consumed the Kool-Aid, if you will, that spending a lot of money on marketing is the answer. Mm-hmm. In my strategy, you need to know what your life costs you.
Yeah.
And I mean, not your life as it is today, your life as you want it to be.
What's your boat on Lake Erie look like,
Seriously.
Yeah.
Do you want a second home? Do you want to winter in Florida?
Yeah.
Look, I'm wintering in Florida right now. Do you want to help put your kids through, college and a wedding?
Yeah.
What does your life cost you right now? And what do you need to save to get your life what you want it to be in the future? How much money is that? Mm-hmm. And then also, what does your business cost you right now? Mm-hmm. And what will your business cost you? It goes where you want it to go. Do you need to get an assistant to help you so that you can make more dollars per hour doing the $500 an hour work instead of the $15 an hour work? What does that look like? So we need to know how much money we literally need to have. Mm-hmm. Number one. Number two, once we figure that out, including taxes, by the way, I can't believe how many agents do not set their taxes aside. Oh my gosh.
It's scary. It's scary, yeah.
Seriously, in April, they're going, well, there goes that vacation.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We didn't plan for it. Mm-hmm. So we need to know what it costs. And then we need to break it down to say, okay, if I need this much money for my business, plus this much money for my personal life and my future, plus this much money for my taxes, mm-hmm. How many homes do I need to sell at my average commission? So now we have units. And then the big missing part is going to come. Mm-hmm. And that is, who is your client? Mm-hmm. Who is your customer? Who is the person that you want to do business with? We need to define those things. And so here's another story. Here's an agent who I'm coaching, and my coaching clients know they are not allowed to spend money without talking to me. Mm-hmm. Because I want them to think through it. I don't want knee-jerk,
Yep.
I'll give you $4,000.
Yep. It's easy to be impulsive in this world,
Yeah.
Especially when things are moving at such a rapid pace these days, yeah.
Absolutely. Call me. Tell me why you want to do it. Tell me where the money's going to come from. Tell me how that's fitting into your plan. And so this agent called, and she was so excited. And it was an internet lead again. And this one sounded really, really good to her. And I said, okay, tell me why you want to do it. She said, well, more leads. I said, okay. So let me just think this through with you. You and I have worked on and we know where you want your business to come from. And what you told me 3 years ago when we started working together was that you don't like doing business with strangers. You want to do business with people you know, your sphere, your family, your neighbors, your relatives, whatever, your peers, and you want to do business locally where people are in your geographic market. She said, well, that's right. I don't like working with strangers. I said, so tell me why you want to throw $15,000 a year at a marketing plan that will attract no one but strangers if you don't want to work with them. Mm-hmm. Never mind.
Wow.
All was over.
That's awesome. I want to call you when I want to go buy a designer bag and have you talk me out of it. I feel like you would just, say something to me that makes me totally reconsider. Be like, you're right. I don't need that bag. I have 10 others in the closet that don't even come out. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And so finding out who do you want to do business with? Mm-hmm. And until you figure that out, we shouldn't be spending a dime on marketing.
Yeah.
And that way your marketing becomes a rifle approach. You're spending money where you want to spend money and where you're directly going after the people that you want to do business with and who you like to do business with. And when I say that, it sounds like being overly selective here, and I don't want to confuse that with fair housing or anything. But I'm telling you, if you want to work with people you know, mm-hmm. then spend your time and money on the people you know. Mm-hmm. If you want to do it in your geographic area, then spend your money and time in your geographic area.
Yep. And it sounds so simple, but it's really not. I think our brains are just trained for whatever reason that it's so opposite of that.
Yeah. Spend money on marketing and then just take what will come. Very passive.
Yeah.
Very passive and very, very busy.
Yes.
So so many realtors don't have a life.
I know.
Outside of real estate.
I know. And even, when you try to, you still get calls and phone and textings, and you're still responding to questions about, can we, move this window here or replace this carpet? It's still, I've seen so many agents, they try, but yet business always still comes no matter what they're trying to do.
Oh my gosh. My daughter, who is a school teacher now, she would rather gnaw her right arm off than become a realtor because she watched me when she grew up.
Yep. Say, that's not for me. Mom worked way too hard.
Yeah. And I wasn't smart enough in the beginning to sort of plan my business. Mm-hmm. And look, it's a business.
Yeah.
Just because it's real estate doesn't mean that it's not a business that shouldn't be planned like Peter Drucker, the great management consultant, would tell you.
Right.
And, if you read his book, I think it's the 5 important questions to ask in your business, or the 5 most important questions. Number 2 on that list, number 1 is, why am I even doing it?
Right.
Number 2, who's your customer? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Don't spend money until. So anyway, back to the original question.
Yeah.
What makes mine so unique? It's backwards of anything we've probably ever learned, and it's easier.
Yeah. It is. That's totally how you've just broken it down, I think, is so much more digestible in a way that, because you're business planning, where do I even start? But I think you just start with, your basics. Look at your business. How much, like you said, break down your life. What do you want in your life? What's it going to take to get you 10 years from now? What do you want your life to look at? Start with that. It's really, if you break it down, really in simple steps as you've shared, it's really pretty okay to tackle. It's not as overwhelming as I think you might think when you think of business planning.
Yeah. And in September, when we're in person,
yes.
I will literally break down those steps very understandably with visuals and everything. The hardest part, Allison, is not the steps and it's not the system. And I have that whole system. The hardest part is for people to understand why they even want to make money. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, one of my favorite coaching clients ever, delightful woman, smart woman, very, very bright woman, very excellent realtor. But her husband made enough money. She didn't need money, so it wasn't the money. Mm-hmm. And she said, I'm having a hard time figuring out why I need to make money. Mm-hmm. And which was me too, honestly.
Yeah, you were kind of similar. You said, the money wasn't the motivator. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't. And for her, we really had to think through it because it was really hard for her. And I find that she had 2 daughters.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids at that time were like, I think they were 11 and 13 or something like that. And I said, let me ask you a question. When your daughters, grow up into their 20s, 30, whatever, do you expect that they might get married someday? And she said, oh, yeah, I hope they get married.
Mm-hmm.
I said, all right, would it be part of your plan to want to help them make that day special and help them financially with their wedding? She said, absolutely. My parents gave me a beautiful wedding. I would want to do that for my girl.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, all right, so here's your homework assignment this week. I want you to plan a wedding for your daughter, and I want you to figure out what it'll cost. And I know she's only like 13, but do it. And then I want you to appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward 10 years.
Yep.
And come back to me with the number and then multiply it times 2.
Right.
So when I talked to her next, she said, that is the scariest thing I've ever had to do. She said, oh my God. She said, I think by the time they get married, we're probably looking at about $70,000 per kid.
Probably. Yeah.
I said, okay, why is that scary? She said, Jackie, it's $140,000. And by the time my second one's married, it'll probably be $150,000. I said, why is that scary?
Yeah.
I said, oh my God, where's that money going to come from? And I said, okay, let me ask you, can that be factored into what your husband brings in? She said, no. I said, okay. Will you want to second mortgage your home for the girls to get married? She said, no, that's why this is scary. I said, okay, then take $160,000 and divide it by how old do you hope they are when they get married at the youngest. She said, I wouldn't want them to get married before they're 23 to 25. I said, good. Then you have a minimum of 10 years. 160,000 divided by 10. What do you need every year? She said 16,000. I said, how much do you make on an average commission in your marketplace right now? She said $8,000. I said, that's 2 sales a year. Could we take your business plan and up it by 2 sales a year and earmark that money for your daughters? And then there is no second mortgage. Then there is no worry. Then there is no strife. And you've done what you wanted. She said, oh my God. 6 sales a year, you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And see, that's what people do is they look at these big goals.
Yep.
And it's scary.
Yep.
To break it down.
And when you break it down, it's so much easier to get through, so much easier to kind of manage and really take on. And I think, I'm really excited for your session and for you to share all the tools necessary to make your business plan incredible. And I appreciate, what you've shared today. This has been really cool, really eye-opening. I know our listeners are going to take something back after listening to the show. And we can't wait to have you here in just a few months in Cleveland, September 18th through 21st. Will be our convention with Jackie, Coach Jackie, here in person. So excited. Jackie, thanks for joining me on the show. And thanks for coming to Cleveland and joining us in your home state.
Oh, Allison, I'm just excited to be with my tribe again. So thank you. I'm honored to be there and love the fact that we could do this too.
Yes, thank you so much. And to all of our listeners who turned in today, thank you guys for joining. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you for listening to The Real View. That wraps up today's episode. You can keep up with the latest on the podcast at ohiorealtors.org/therealview and on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Have questions, comments, or suggestions? We want to hear from you. Email us at podcast@ohiorealtors.org. We'll see you next time.